Welcome to The Point, your focus on what matters. And here we don't just recount the biggest headlines, we break them down to see the real-life impacts. I'm Huyền Trân, and here is what we're looking at today. The Politburo has recently issued Resolution number 10 on the development of the foreign direct investment FDI sector. The resolution marks a major shift in Vietnam's approach to attracting FDI, moving away from investment at all costs towards a greater focus on quality, efficiency, and value-added contribution. Vietnam is shifting from broad-based investment incentives to a more selective approach with priority given to key sectors such as electronics, semiconductor chips, artificial intelligence, and green industries. Now, the FDI sector needs to be developed into an ecosystem that is closely integrated with domestic supply chains. A number of targets have been set for the 2026 to 2030 period, including ensuring that 75% of foreign investment comes from developed economies, attracting at least 3 of the world's leading technology corporations to establish research and development R&D centers in Vietnam, and achieving annual FDI disbursement of 30 to 40 billion US dollars.
Hanoi has unveiled its 100-year development vision on the city's investment portal. The master plan identifies Hòa Lạc, Sơn Tây, Xuân Mai as a future hub for high-tech industries, AI, semiconductors, and R&D. The Nội Bài Đông Anh, Sóc Sơn Mê Linh corridor will focus on air logistics and the development of a free trade zone. The Red River Axis is planned as a center for culture, finance, tourism, and innovation. The strategy aims to shift Hanoi from attracting investment to selecting strategic, high-tech projects that drive long-term growth.
The master plan not only provides information on land use planning and key infrastructure and transport projects, but also gives investors an overall view of Hanoi's development direction. It helps them identify areas with strong potential investment.
Bản đồ có các quy hoạch chi tiết cho các dự án có vốn đầu tư nước ngoài, thì đó là một cái điều rất tốt. Đối với các nhà đầu tư nước ngoài thì họ sẽ căn cứ vào đấy để coi như họ xem xét, họ quyết định.
Hải Phòng City is one of the country's most dynamic industrial centers. The city is prioritizing projects in electronics and high technology that build strong links with domestic businesses, in line with objectives set out in Resolution number 10. These priorities are now being implemented through concrete measures.
Chúng tôi cũng sẽ ưu tiên những cái dự án mà đặt được cái mục tiêu tỷ lệ nội địa hóa. Thứ hai là sẽ tăng cường các cái hệ thống kết nối giữa doanh nghiệp trong nước của thành phố với doanh nghiệp FDI, đưa ra các cái danh mục mà bên doanh nghiệp FDI cần có cái sự tham gia hoặc là cần cái nguồn cung ứng từ trong nước.
Nghị quyết 10 nêu rất rõ, chỉ khi các doanh nghiệp Việt Nam liên kết được với các doanh nghiệp có vốn đầu tư nước ngoài thì hiệu quả đầu tư mới nâng cao được, về công nghiệp phụ trợ mới phát triển được, và cái giá trị gia tăng để lại ở Việt Nam mới tăng được.
Foreign investors seeking to benefit from special investment incentives must commit to technology transfer, establish research and development centers, and support Vietnamese businesses in becoming more deeply integrated into global production networks. Resolution number 10 also requires localities to develop investment attraction strategies that are aligned with their planning, advantages, and development conditions, rather than competing to attract investment based simply on the number of projects.
Now, joining us to discuss this week's topic is Mr. Chad Oval, partner and the coach for leaders at Mekong Capital, an investment firm that manages and invests foreign capital in Vietnam. He has spent the past 30 years working in Vietnam, particularly in economics and foreign investment. Mr. Oval, the resolution number 10 calls for an end to competition in attracting FDI through broad-based incentives. And instead, incentives should be tied to investors' fulfillment of their commitments, such as project quality, investment efficiency, technology transfer, the creation of high-quality jobs, and linkages with Vietnamese enterprises. So how do you assess this policy shift, and what impact do you expect it to have on the Vietnamese market?
Vietnam is ready for this shift. Vietnam has a very well-educated, eager to learn young workforce. And I think that's a perfect match for a shift to a focus on companies that are bringing technology transfer, innovation, and higher quality jobs. At Mekong Capital, we already started a shift in our own investment activity. In the last 5 years, we have been increasingly investing in innovative companies in sectors like biotechnology, agrotechnology, and we dared to do so because we saw entrepreneurs in Vietnam ready for this type of capital.
Right. And what should local authorities do to effectively fulfill their roles in investor selection, project appraisal, and post-investment monitoring, while also creating favorable conditions for FDI projects to operate successfully?
I think that will be challenging. What is critical is for the government of Vietnam to develop a very easy to understand set of definitions, set of metrics, or you could call them KPIs, that can be used by local authorities across the country to assess and monitor projects. It's critical that the projects get monitored and assessed against the same criteria. And developing that framework early and making it easy to understand and precise will be very important to support the local authorities to carry out their roles in investor selection, project appraisal.
Right, like what we just discussed, that policy shift raises a bigger question. How can Vietnam move from attracting FDI in volume to attracting FDI that creates real value for the domestic economy? Resolution number 10 of the Politburo sets a target for Vietnam to have around 10,000 domestic enterprises participating in the supply chains of foreign invested enterprises by 2030. And of these, between 500 and 1,000 are expected to become Tier 1 suppliers, directly providing components and products to FDI enterprises. And to achieve this target, government support policies will play an important role. At the same time, Vietnamese enterprises themselves will need to proactively strengthen their capabilities and enhance linkages.
This is a security camera. It looks simple, but the story behind it is incredible. So this device has undergone over 200 rigorous tests to achieve these 4 certifications in order to enter FDI projects. And in order for that to happen, this Vietnamese company has invested nearly $400,000 in R&D, laboratories, and manufacturing processes. The camera, automatic door, and smart switches are supplied by a Vietnamese firm to European factories. To clear this high bar, each model undergoes months of testing, with hundreds of checks on electrical safety, interference, and durability.
Điểm khó nhất là với mỗi đối tác FDI thì thường có những bộ tiêu chuẩn nội bộ riêng khắt khe hơn các tiêu chuẩn quốc tế tối thiểu. Ví dụ như là đối với thị trường châu Âu thì họ đòi hỏi các tiêu chuẩn về an toàn điện, tiêu chuẩn về kết nối, tiêu chuẩn về bảo mật thông tin. Ngoài ra họ cũng yêu cầu các tiêu chuẩn về truy xuất nguồn gốc linh kiện và chuỗi cung ứng.
Joining FDI supply chains requires upgrading overall capability. Investing around $400,000 in a fully equipped testing lab served as a stepping stone for this firm to supply solutions to over 50 factories in FDI chains.
Xác định rằng chúng tôi không phải là một đơn vị gia công, sẽ không trở thành một đơn vị gia công giá rẻ, mà chúng tôi sẽ xác định là một đơn vị mà có thể là cung cấp những cái giá trị cốt lõi cho đối tác. Vì thế cái yếu tố tiên quyết là phải làm chủ công nghệ.
Resolution 10 sets a goal of having 500 to 1,000 Tier 1 FDI suppliers by 2030. However, achieving this goal remains a major hurdle. Experts highlight 2 main bottlenecks: excessive R&D and lab costs for SMEs, and the lack of regional linkage models to share common research infrastructure.
Phải tạo điều kiện để chuỗi liên kết vùng là một thứ để các doanh nghiệp có thể phân bổ cái chi phí R&D hay chi phí của các cái phòng lab mà người ta không thể một mình gánh chịu.
Mastering core technologies and developing shared R&D ecosystems are key for Vietnamese firms to move beyond low-cost assembly and participate more deeply in global value chains.
what we just saw shows how high the bar is for Vietnamese firms entering FDI supply chains. Stricter standards, R&D investment, technology mastery, and stronger management capacity. So how can more Vietnamese enterprises make that leap and become real Tier 1 suppliers? Let's return to our guests. Now, Mr. Oval, resolution number 10 sets a target of having approximately 10,000 Vietnamese enterprises participating in FDI supply chains by 2030. However, Vietnamese businesses continue to face numerous challenges. So in your view, what capabilities do Vietnamese enterprises need to strengthen in order to achieve this target?
Well, we see this in our own investment activity that one of the most critical things that Vietnamese enterprises need to do to participate in global supply chains or to be suppliers to FDI companies, they need to recruit the best talent in the market and to have a more long-term access to knowledge and talent. They can strengthen their board of directors by recruiting industry experts to sit on their board and come to meetings 3-4 times a year to help advise them on strategy and how to access technology and talent globally.
Right. And resolution number 10 measures the success of FDI attraction by the number of Vietnamese enterprises able to join FDI supply chains and grow through that participation. How do you think this new approach will shape Vietnam's FDI landscape in the coming years?
That makes Vietnam much more attractive to FDI companies if they are able to source a majority or almost all of their input services and raw materials and semi-finished goods here in the country. It makes the supply chain much more resilient and sustainable, and it allows them to work with their suppliers to innovate and much more quickly develop new products. So this is, the government has done the right thing to put a focus and attention on how to support Vietnamese enterprises to plug into this supply chain and support FDI companies to source more of their products locally.
And what is your outlook for the quality of FDI inflows into Vietnam in the coming years? And what recommendations would you make to help Vietnam achieve the objectives set out in resolution number 10 to improve the quality, efficiency, and value-added contribution of FDI?
Well, there's the obvious things like finish all of the big investment in infrastructure going on now. We need ports and roads and bridges that function at a higher speed and a higher predictability than we currently have. But the government is already doing that. And the government is stepping up on the quality and speed of infrastructure execution. So I think the key recommendation I would have is education, particularly the higher education system. Vietnam has done this well in the past. I believe the number today is something like 30 to 35,000 software engineers graduate from university every year, Vietnam. And that has made Vietnam very competitive in the IT outsourcing sector. But the government needs to simply repeat this for different sectors going forward. The key is qualified graduates from the higher education system.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Oval, for your time and insights. Now, after nearly 40 years of reform and opening up, Vietnam is moving toward a more selective approach to attracting foreign investment. The country is shifting from a model focused primarily on attracting capital to one that prioritizes investment quality, productivity, efficiency, and sustainability. And this approach not only strengthens Vietnam's competitiveness as a destination for foreign investment, it also lays the foundation for a new growth model driven by science and technology, while enhancing the country's strategic self-reliance. It also strengthens Vietnam's international standing and reputation. And more importantly, this shift will play a key role in helping the country to achieve its development goals for 2030 and its long-term vision for 2045. And that brings us to the end of this edition. Thank you for watching and see you next time on The Point.